Today we will be discussing about what are the physiotherapy management in spinal TB. So the spinal TB basically the infection which is caused by tuberculous bacilli to the spinal vertebrae. So when it affects the spinal vertebrae, either it can damage this vertebral body only or the vertebra, or it can extend to the vertebral column or the vertebral canal where the spinal cord is passing. So if the infection is spread to the spinal cord or it is causing any compression to the spinal cord, it can result in some kind of paraplegic or paralytic condition. So at that moment, it should be considered as a spinal cord injury. So as long as if there is no compression to the spinal cord, we can have a general management for the TB spine. So basically, if there is infection to the spinal cord, the first line of treatment is in a conservative manner. So the patient will be in antitubercular drug. So during that stage, the physiotherapy management is mainly aimed to prevent the complications which can arise due to this prolonged immobilization. So if there is any affection to the spinal cord, the primary management for this particular condition is a spinal immobilization, mainly to prevent the complications in the spinal cord. So if there is an infection, if you are not going for a proper immobilization period, it can worsen to a spinal cord injury. So none of us want to get into that stage of spinal cord injury. So in the conservative management, the first line of management will be a proper immobilization. So the patient will be asked to be in an immobilized stage, either in a bed rest or with a proper immobilization facilities or in a proper immobilization facilities. So during this immobilization period, the primary physiotherapy aim is to prevent all the complications which can arrive due to this prolonged immobilization. So the main complications which can arrive due to this prolonged immobilization, there can be some amount of reduction in the chest functions. So one of the main attachment to the spinal cord or the spinal column is the thorax region or the chest and thorax. So most of the muscle which help for respiration are either originating or it has some attachment to the spinal column. So basically the diaphragm has some attachment to the spinal column. So because of this, the prolonged immobilization can reduce the strength of spinal muscles. So the patient should be educated on the postural attitude which may be further compress the cord with its subsequent complication. So the patient should be advised to avoid any kind of posture or any kind of activities which can increase the compression to the spinal cord. So if there is a spinal cord involvement, it will result in some fatal conditions as a paraplegic or spinal cord injury. So we don't want that happen. So we will be advising the patient to be in a proper safe posture which will avoid any compression to the spinal cord. And gentle range of motions or active movements are given to cervical spine and the upper and lower extremities. So the patient will be in bed rest or in an immobilized stage. So in this immobilization stage, we should be encouraging the patient to go for all the activities if possible by the patient to maintain the normal range of motion in all the joints except the region which is under immobilization. So commonly this TB affects mainly in the thorax region. So we should be immobilizing this thorax region, but at the same time we should be looking for cervical region. So all the active movements in the cervical region and the upper limb and lower limb should be encouraged, or it should be advised to the patient to continue with all the active movements in the regions where immobilizations are not placed. And if in case the patient is not able to perform any of active movements, then we should be going for passive movements. And spinal immobilization reduce the efficiency of respiratory system, and therefore slow and deep breathing exercise is valuable in maintaining vital capacity. So one of the complications which can arise due to this spinal immobilization is reduction in normal lung volumes and capacity. So if there is a reduction in normal lung volume and capacities, there can be some variations in oxygen content in the blood. So we don't want to happen any of those further complication to the respiratory system. So if there is no proper respiratory movements, there are chances of getting high amount of sputum production, and this can reduce this normal lung volume and capacity. So at that stage, we should be encouraging the patient to going for some deep breathing exercises, mainly to maintain this lung functions. And proper positioning of the body is explained with emphasis on protecting the pressure points to avoid bed sores. So other complications, one of the other complications which can arise due to this long immobilization in a single posture or in a single position is that it can give you bed sores. So basically bed sores or decubitus ulcers are mainly causing due to breakdown of skin, which is mainly caused by excessive pressure on a single point. So this bed sore are mainly caused by immobilization. So during immobilization, there are particular areas in our body which will bear maximum amount of pressure to the underlying surface. So if it is in supine position, the first one which can go for excessive pressure is the occiput, then over the scapular region, then over the buttocks, and if it is in sideline, then over the greater trochanter of the hip and the lateral malleus. So these are the common points where the bed sores can arise in a prolonged immobilization. So to avoid these bed sores, we should be asking the patient to change the position in a particular time to avoid this bed sores. And strength of muscle groups innervated by the spinal segment of affected vertebra should be checked and often exercised. So if we are suspecting that the infection or the exudate has been extended to the spinal cord or the spinal canal or to the lateral canal, and if in case we are suspecting that these extensions of pus or the infections may involve in the innervation of peripheral muscles, we should be checking the myotomes of the particular regions, and if we found any weakness or any irregularities in strength, we should be starting with strengthening of the particular myotomes. And after healing the lesion, so once we came to the conclusion that the infection got subsided or the infections are under control, we can start with some gradual progressive exercises. So how we know that the healing of lesions has occurred is mainly by looking for clinical symptoms and signs of infections, looking for local changes. We are checking for whether there is any local signs are present, and we are going for a spinal x-rays which will show a improvement of the particular conditions. So once we are sure that there is a proper healing, then we can start with gradual progressive exercises and mobilizations, spinal mobilization and strengthening of the spinal muscles. Isometrics of spinal flexors, rotators and side flexors can be initiated. Costal, diaphragmatic as well as apical breathing should be made vigorous to improve the mobility of thoracic spine. So now we have passed this immobilization period. So our primary aim in immobilization period is to prevent all the complications. So we were preventing all the chest complications, and we were preventing all the muscular atrophies which can arise due to prolonged immobilization. So once we pass that immobilization period and now we are in a healing stage or a after heal stage. So in this stage, our primary aim is to not to preserve the properties of lungs and muscles. In this stage, our main aim is to improve all these functions. So all the functions which we were preserving in early stage has to be progressed to another level. So in this stage, we will be actually starting with exercises to improve the functions of all the muscles which are surrounding the spinal column, all the flexors, extensors, rotators should be initiated at this time. So in the early stage, our primary aim to the thoracic region was to preserve normal lung volume and function. But in this stage, our aim is to improve this lung volume and capacities. At the same time, we should be improving the mobility of thoracic spine by means of coastal and diaphragmatic breathing techniques. So begin with spinal exercise with extension gradually progressing to hyperextension in prone line. Mobility and strengthening of side flexion, rotation, and lateral flexion should be initiated in this stage. So we will be progressing to other stage where we are actually aiming to improve the strength of the particular muscles which we were preserving in the early stage. And mobility should be progressed further as small active trunk movements. So once we started with the spinal mobility exercise as rolling or normal activities, we should be progressing that to small active trunk movements. We should be initiating with some trunk movements which can improve this spinal mobility. Sitting up, standing, and ambulation to be initiated with spinal brace. So once we are sure that the particular infection got controlled and the bony pathologies are in a healed stage, or all these bony pathologies are healed, now we can progress to some of functional activities. So we will be starting with sitting up, standing, and ambulation. So all these should be done with a spinal brace. So the spinal brace is mainly to support the spinal column and the surrounding structures. So all these activities should be begin with a proper spinal brace. And preventive measures to avoid recurrence need to be explained, and the use of spinal brace to be continued during working. So we should be advising the patient about what are the preventive measures which should be adapted to avoid the recurrence of any spinal pathologies. So all the preventive measures, such as we are asking the patient to go for light daily activities, and we are not encouraging the patient for a vigorous daily activity. So all the things which need to be avoided should be taught to the patient, and we should be asking the patient to continue the spinal brace whenever he is going for any ambulatory works. And if the patient develops paraplegia, the treatment proceeds on the same line as described for traumatic paraplegia. So if in case the infection got extended to the spinal column or the spinal cord, this can result in a spinal cord injury. So the management in that situation is will be changing entirely as like a spinal cord injury patient. So the patient in that stage will be presented as either paraplegic or a paralytic patient. So the entire management at that stage will be changed to as of a spinal cord injury patient. So that is about conservative management. So what are the things which we need to be looking during conservative management? So there are early management and a active after healing stage. So in an early stage, our primary aim is to preserve all the properties which the patient has, and during next stage, our main aim is to improve the function and improve the strength and mobility of the patient. And next is for the patient who are treated with the help of surgery. So there should be a pre-operative assessment. So before going for operation or any surgical procedures, there should be a pre-operative assessment should be done for the patient. The musculoskeletal system and the special emphasis on respiratory system is done through physical examination. So there should be a proper musculoskeletal examination, mainly to rule out the involvement of any spinal cord injuries. So we should be going for a preoperative assessment, mainly focusing on neuromusculoskeletal and respiratory systems. So the patient should be assessed for normal respiratory functions, and the patient should be checked for the strength of normal respiratory muscles, and we should be observing whether there is any accessory muscles are using during respiration. So we should be looking for all the respiratory parameters, and we should be checking all the neuromuscular assessments in the patient. So mainly in neuromuscular, we will be checking for dermatomes or myotomes, mainly to differentiate whether there is any spinal cord injuries are present or not. And musculoskeletal examination, we should be examining for the pain and the extension of pain and the functions which are limited due to this pain. So we should be having a pre-operative assessment. So this pre-operative assessment is a helpful tool to predict the outcome for the patient. So if in case the patient has some kind of respiratory complaints before the surgery, such as any asthma or any respiratory complications are present pre-operatively, can reduce the outcome post-operatively. So we should be having a proper pre-operative assessment. To one of the main aim is to predict the post-operative result, and also to have a proper exercise program for the particular patient. So there should be a pre-operative training, mainly focus on post-operative outcomes. So post-operative regimes of physiotherapy during the subsequent weeks is explained. The emphasis of training includes the following. So the patient should be taught about all the exercises which should be performed after surgery, and we should be teaching the patient about chest physiotherapy. So what are the physiotherapy methods we can use to improve the chest functions and chest mobility, positioning and movements to avoid immediately after surgery, and the complications which can arrive due to the surgery. So we should be advising, or we should be educating the patient about what are the movements which should be avoided immediately after post surgery, and what are the complications which can arrive due to this particular surgery, and what are the preventive measures to avoid these complications. So there should be a proper patient education and methodology of safe bed activities like turning transfers with the help of corset or a POP cast or POP jacket should be taught to the patient. So how to use this proper lumbar corset or the spinal corset and the POP jacket should be taught to the patient. So what are the benefits which can come due to this spinal corset or due to this POP jacket should be taught to the patient. And techniques of sitting from lying, getting down from bed and standing, balance and ambulation should be taught to the patient. So all the techniques which are helpful for the patient post-operatively should be taught in a pre-operative regime. Mobility and strengthening exercises of spine should be taught to the patient. Correct principles of ergonomics should be strictly observed post-operatively and in future. So ergonomics is mainly related to the workplace or due to the environment of the particular patient. So we should be assessing the environment of the patient. So what are the environmental hazards, or what are the environmental complications which the patient can arise after the surgery should be assessed, and the management of ergonomics should be taught to the patient. So those are the things which we are actually need to focus pre-operatively. Next is immediately after post-operative phase. So what are the things which you need to be taking care immediately after operation? The main surgical procedures which are used for the management of tibia spina: recession of the rib, recession of transverse process, and sometimes even affected vertebra with decompression of spinal cord. So these are the main surgical procedures which are done in the TB patient. So immediately after postoperative phase, the patient is nursed in a bed. Therefore, care should be taken to avoid stress over the operated area. So immediately after surgery, the patient will be in an immobilized stage in a nursing bed. So at that stage, we should be avoiding impact to this spinal column or to the surgical part. And chest physiotherapy in the form of deep breathing exercise and diaphragmatic breathing exercise are initiated to avoid chest complications which can arrive due to anesthesia or due to surgical complications. Rib resection make breathing difficult and painful. So chest physiotherapy is mainly to avoid the anesthetic complication and also to avoid the surgery complications. So in case of general anesthesia, there are increase in secretions. The secretions in lungs are increased. So because of this, there can be some reduction in lung volume and capacities. So that has to be prevented with the help of chest physiotherapy. And one of the problem which we can face in the thorax region is mainly when the rib resection or the resection of transverse process are taken place. So in these conditions, all the movements which are related to the chest cavity will be painful. So an extra care should be taken to avoid any painful situations when we are giving chest physiotherapy. It needs to be carefully done by physiotherapists supporting the rib cage with both hands. So if we are performing any of chest physiotherapy techniques in the patient with the rib excision, we should be supporting that particular area with the help of our hands. So we should not want to increase any of the complaint of the patient, mainly the pain which can cause due to this rib resection. So we should be avoiding that situation and we should be supporting the rib cage with the help of our hands. And one other complication which can arise due to this prolonged immobilization is thrombosis. Thrombosis is basically formation of blood clot in the venous system, mainly due to venostasis. So venostasis is something like pooling of blood or pooling of venous blood in particular area. So the common area where we can found thrombosis is in our calf region or in the lower limb. So the thrombosis is prevented by early strong movements of the ankle and toes in the presence of paraplegia. The passive movements and positioning of the body and lower extremities are important. So the thrombosis has to be prevented by either by active movements by the patient. So if the patient is not able to perform these active movements, maybe due to this paraplegia, that's the situation where we have to go for passive movements and we should be elevating the lower limb to facilitate this venous return and to avoid venous stasis. So we should be performing passive movements if in case of paraplegia, and we should be positioning the limb in an elevated position to improve this venous circulation and to avoid venous stasis. And if the patient is able to go for active movements, we should be encouraging the patient to perform active ankle toe movements. And susceptible pressure points should be carefully inspected and protected. So the main aim is to prevent the bed sore. So we should be going for proper checking of the areas which are much more of pressure zones, and we should be changing the position frequently. And simple resistive movements may be initiated to the arms, avoiding overhead stretch, maybe because this can put extra strain on spine. So all the regions apart from the surgical area should be started with a progressive strengthening exercise. So if the surgery is done on thoracic region, we can start with upper limb and lower limb strengthening exercises. And one of the things which you need to be prevent is overhead activities of upper limb. So these overhead activities can give much more strain to the spinal cord So we don't want to have, we don't want to, we don't want to happen that. So we will be avoiding these overhead activities of upper limb. Similarly, sternus lower limb activities are encouraged, but SLR and pelvic rolling are contraindicated. So this SLR can also produce much more strain to lower limb, and pelvic rotations can make, or the rotations of pelvis will produce some amount of rotatory movements in the spinal column. So these two movements in the lower limb has to be avoided. And paratic but functionally important muscles should be exercised to improve their strength and endurance. So all the paratic muscles, either due to this particular infection or due to immobilization, has to be strengthened to improve, mainly to improve this strength and endurance of particular muscle. So that is during immobilization period after surgery. Next is mobilization period. So in this mobilization period, our main aim is to improve the patient's function in a mobilized manner. The patient should be able to go for all his activities in and around. So in this stage, gradual mobilization is carried out only after thoroughly checking the accurate fitting of spinal corset. So the patient will be asked to wear a spinal corset. So before starting with this mobilizations or any activities, we should be checking for accurate fitting of this spinal corset. Log rolling, standing, and ambulations are initiated and progressed as described for spinal fusion. So log rolling, these are mainly basically the bed activities. So the bed activities, standing and ambulations are initiated and progress as described for any spinal fusion surgeries. So in spinal fusion surgery also, once the immobilization period are over, then we can start with this log rolling, standing, and local ambulation with the help of any of assistive devices. So we should be starting all these activities in mobilization period. When the fusion between the bodies of vertebrae consolidate, mobilization of spine can be begun. So once we are sure that the fusion of vertebral body are taking place, so there is a proper consolidation of this fusion, then we can actually start with spinal mobilization. Vigorous strengthening of spinal extensors and abdominals can be initiated and progressed. Ergonomic principles of Baker programs are observed strictly, and overstraining activities like carrying weights and bending forward are discouraged. So this carrying objects and bending forward can give much more stress to the spinal column. So all these activities need to be avoided, and proper ergonomics advice should be given to the patient. The use of corset is gradually weaned off and daily activities are encouraged. Patients with paraplegia are managed as in spinal injuries. So once we are sure that his spinal muscles or the abdominal or the core muscles of spinal column has got its proper strength, then we can actually think of weaning from this corset. So the spinal corset should be avoided when the patient has proper spinal muscular strength. And if the patient is presented with postoperative paraplegia, then the patient should be managed according with spinal cord injury patient.